There are people in this world who grew up with what they wanted, and there are those in this world who grew up with what they needed. For the former, their wants became needs, and the latter, what they felt they needed, became what they wanted. Selah. Welcome back. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. How is everybody? Had some time off, feeling good, had to touch base, just chill a little bit, taking time away from social media, just chilling in the secret place. But yeah, let's get back to this word, back to the Bible, baby. So Chronicles, reading Chronicles is just like, it shows us why Father Yah is going to give us Yeshua. How we need him. As I've said before, we have kings, righteous kings, but they die, and their sons take their place and they're not so righteous. And that's the whole point of all this. The whole point. Passing on that fear of the Most High. Gosh, it started sweating. Passing on that fear of the Most High, carrying on the legacy, keeping the righteousness, building the house, and also having your own relationship. What's in your heart? What you need? What are your thoughts of the future? And so on and so on and so on and so on. It just goes on and on and on. So we all know Kings and Chronicles. Reading through, it's just like, it's great, and then it's like, oh, it's great, and then it's like, oh, disappointment. Like, until you get to certain characters. So, I'm a bit rusty, but let me get in. Where did I want to start? Okay. 2 Chronicles 28. So David's come at the end of his reign. Solomon is growing up. He's a man now. And David sat down. He's speaking to his son. So Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 28 and 6, yeah. And he said to me, Solomon, your son shall build my house and my courts, for I have chosen him to be my son, and I will be his father. I will establish his kingdom forever, if he loyally and continuously obeys my commandments and my ordinances, as he does today. Now therefore, in the sight of all Israel, the assembly of the Father, and in the hearing of our Elohim, keep and seek to be familiar with all the commandments of Yah, your Elohim, that you may possess this good land and leave it as an inheritance for your children after you forever. And you, Solomon, my son, know the God of your father, have personal knowledge of him, be acquainted with and understand him, appreciate, heed and cherish him, and serve him with a blameless heart and a willing mind. For the Father searches all hearts and minds, and understands all the wantings of the thoughts. If you seek him, inquire for and of him, and require him as your first and vital necessity, you will find him. But if you forsake him, he will cast you off forever. Take heed now, for the Father has chosen you to build a house for the sanctuary. Be strong and do it. Then David gave Solomon his son the plan of the vestibule and the temple and its houses and its treasures and upon the chambers and its inner rooms, on to 29 and 23. Then Solomon sat on the throne of Yah as king instead of his father, and he prospered, and all Israel obeyed him. All the leaders and mighty men, and also all the sons of King David, pledged allegiance to King Solomon. And the Lord magnified Solomon exceedingly in the sight of all Israel, and bestowed upon him such royal majesty as had not been any king before him in Israel. Thus David, son of Jesse, reigned over all Israel. The time he reigned over Israel was 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron and 30 years in Jerusalem. He died in a good old age, his 71st year, full and satisfied of days, riches, honour. Solomon, his son, reigned in his stead. And we all know the trials, the tribulations, like everything David went through with Father Yah, from a very young age all the way up until 71. Like, just an eventful life, like just full. And people say that leading a godly life, leading a biblical life will be boring. Also, we'll get to this, like, unbelievers, you really need to read this book, because you focus on the miracles, but it's all about the word, the stuff that comes true, the stuff that happens, is happening, has happened, and is to happen. You don't need to concentrate on miracles when you notice these things. And the word of God, it stands strong, it stands true. It never comes back void. So 1 Chronicles 29:23. Then Solomon sat on the throne of the father as king instead of David, his father, and he prospered, and all Israel obeyed him. Sorry, I read that already, didn't I? Did I? Solomon therefore sat in this stead. All leaders of mighty men pledged to King Solomon, and the Lord magnified Solomon exceedingly in sight of Israel. Such were David's reign. Okay. So 2 Chronicles, on to 2 Chronicles. I just want to skip right on to 6 and 7, right? Sorry, forgive me, I need to get back into the flow of things. It's been a while. Okay, then Solomon said, The Father has said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. I have built you a house in which the dark, holy of holies seems. A fitting abode for you, a place for you to dwell in forever. And the king turned his face and blessed all the assembly of Israel, and they all stood. And he said, Blessed be the Father, the Elohim of Israel, who has fulfilled with his hands what he promised with his mouth to my father, saying, Since the day I have brought my people out of the land of Egypt, again, like constantly through this battle, out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of Egypt, like, so you can understand, when you trying to wake people up, wake up your brothers and sisters, bring people to the faith, especially family, like Yasharel, Israelites. You see how angry the Most High is with us because of what he did coming out of Israel. Many things he did in this book. And we just don't want it. We just don't want it. Jeremiah 6:16. Thus says Yah, stand by the roads and look and ask for the eternal paths where where the good old day is, the good old way is. Stand by the roads and look and ask for the eternal paths where the good old way is. Then walk in it, and you'll find rest for all your souls. But they said, we will not walk in it. Constantly throughout this book, through the prophets and everything, that's just like so frustrating. Really, really frustrating. But then again, this is what it's about. That's what the Chronicles is about. That's what Kings is about. I brought my people out of the land of Israel. I chose no city among all the tribes of Israel to build a house that my name might be there. Neither chose any man to be a ruler over my people Israel. But I have chosen Jerusalem that my name and the symbol of my presence might be there. And I have chosen David to be over my people Israel. Now it was in the heart of David, my father, to build a house for the name and renown of Yah, the Elohim of Israel. But Yah said to David, my father, since it was in your heart to build a house for my name and renown, you did well that it was in your heart. Just simply David's desire to build a house for Father Yah. Pleased him. That was his desire. What is your desire for the kingdom, the coming kingdom, for the future? You know? Is it all inward thinking? Or is it for the whole family? Is it for the Father, for the praise, for the blessing? Oh, it's all in here. It's all in here. But Yah said to David, my father, since it was in your heart to build a house for my name and renown, you did well that it was in your heart. Yet you shall not build the house, but your son, who shall be born to you, he should build my house for my name. Yah therefore has performed his word that he has spoken, for I have risen up in the place of David my father, and sit on the throne of Israel, as Yah promised, and have built the house for the name of Yah, the God of Israel. In it have I put the ark, the symbol of his presence, in which the covenant of Yah, the 10 commandments which he made with the people of Israel. And Solomon stood before the altar of the Father in the presence of all the assembly of Israel, and spread forth his hands. For he had made a bronze scaffold, 5 cubits square and 3 cubits high. He's built a platform in the middle of the congregation, in the middle of the court, and set in the midst of the court. Upon it he stood, and he knelt upon his knees before all the assembly of Israel, and spread forth his hands towards the heaven, and said, O Yah, Elohim of Israel, there is no Elohim like you in the heavens or the earth, keeping covenant and showing mercy and loving kindness to your servants who walk before you with all their hearts. You who have kept your promises to my father David and fulfilled with your hand what you spoke with your mouth, as it is today. Now therefore, O Father, Elohim of Israel, keep with your servant David my father that which you promised him, saying, there shall not fail a man in my sight to sit on the throne of Israel, provided your children are careful to walk in my law as you, David, have walked before me. Now then, O Yah, Elohim of Israel, let your word to your servant David be verified. But will God actually dwell with men on the earth? But will God actually dwell with men on the earth? Behold, heaven and the heaven of heavens cannot contain you. How much less this house which I have built? Yet have respect for the prayer of your servant and for his supplication, O Yah my Elohim, to listen to the cry and to the prayer which your servant prays before you, that your eyes may be upon this house day and night, toward the place in which you have said you would put your name and the symbol of your presence, to listen and to heed the prayer which your servant prays facing this place. So listen to and heed the request of your servant, your people Israel, which they shall make facing this place. Hear from your dwelling place, heaven, and when you hear, forgive. If a man sins against his neighbor and he is required to take an oath, and the oath comes before your altar in this house, then hear from heaven and do and judge your servants, requiting the wicked by bringing his conduct upon his head, and justifying the uncompromisingly righteous by giving him according to his righteousness, his uprightness and right standing with you. If your people Israel have defeated, if your people Israel have been defeated before the enemy, this is so good. If your people Israel have been defeated before the enemy because they have sinned against you, and shall return, confess your name and you yourself, and pray and make supplication before you in this house, then hear from heaven and forgive the sin of your people Israel, and bring them again to the land which you gave to them and their fathers. We're all there again. You see, round and round in circles, and constantly we're there again and again. When the heavens are shut up and there is no rain, because your people have sinned against you, yet if they pray towards this place, confess your name and you yourself, and turn from their sin when you afflict them, then hear from heaven and forgive the sin of your servants, all of your people Israel, when you have taught them the good way in which they should walk, and send rain upon your land, which you have given your people for an inheritance. If there is a famine in the land, if there is pestilence, blight, mildew, locusts, or caterpillars, if their enemies besiege them in any of their cities, whatever plague or sickness there may be, then whatever prayer or supplication any man or all of your people Israel shall make, each knowing his own affliction and his own sorrow, and stretching out his hands towards this house, then hear from heaven, your dwelling place, and forgive and render to every man according to all his ways, whose heart you know, for you only know men's hearts, that they may fear you and walk in your ways as long as they live in the land which you gave to your fathers. Also concerning the stranger, here we go, friends. Concerning the stranger, I saw something else in the scriptures that it was just like, boom. We'll get to that another day, but also concerning the stranger who is not from your people Israel, but has come from a far country for your great name's sake and your mighty power and your outstretched arm, if he comes and prays towards this house, hear from heaven, from your dwelling place, and do all for which the stranger calls to you, that all the peoples of the earth may know your name and fear you reverently and worshipfully, as do your people Israel, and may know that this house which I have built is called by your name. If your people go out to war against their enemies by the way that you send them, and they pray to you facing this city, Jerusalem, which you have chosen, and the house which I have built for your name, then hear from heaven their prayer and supplication, and maintain their cause. If they sin against you, for there is no man who does not sin, and you are angry with them, and give them to enemies, who take them captive to a land far or near. Yet if they repent in the land to which they have been carried captive, and turn and pray there, saying, we have sinned, we have done wrong, we have dealt wickedly. If they turn to you with all their heart and soul in the land of their captivity, and pray facing their land which you gave to their fathers, and towards the city which you have chosen, and the house which I have built for your name, then hear from heaven, your dwelling place, their prayer and supplications, and maintain their cause, and forgive your people who have sinned against you. Now, O my Elohim, I beseech you, let your eyes be open and your ears attentive to the prayer offered in this temple. So now arise, O Father Yah, and come into your resting place. You and the ark of your strength and power, let your priests, O Yah, be clothed with salvation, and let your saints, your zealous ones, rejoice in good and in your goodness. O Heavenly Father, turn not away the face of me, your anointed one. Earnestly remember your good deeds, mercy and steadfast love for David, your servant. 7. 2 Chronicles 7. When Solomon had finished praying, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Father filled the house. The priest could not enter the house of the Father, because the glory of the Lord had filled the Lord's house. And when all the people of Israel saw how the fire came down in the glory of the Father upon the house, they bowed with their faces upon the pavement and worshipped and praised the Father, saying, for he is good, for his mercy and loving kindness endure forever. Then the king and all the people offered sacrifices before the Father. King Solomon offered a sacrifice of 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the people dedicated God's house. The priests stood at their posts, and the Levites also, with instruments of music to the Lord, which King David had made, and praised. Give thanks to the Father, for his mercy and loving kindness endure forever. Whenever David praised through their ministry, the priests blew trumpets before them, and all Israel stood. A musical people. There were musical Levites, there were musicians, hundreds of them. Moreover, Solomon consecrated the middle of the court that was before the house of the Father, for there he offered burnt offerings and the fat of peace offerings, because the bronze altar which he had made was sufficient to receive the burnt offerings, the cereal offerings, and the fat. At that time Solomon held the feast for 7 days, and all Israel with him, a very great assembly from the entrance of Hamath to the brook of Egypt. The 8th day they made a solemn assembly, for they had kept the dedication of the altar and the feasts, each for 7 days. And on the 23rd day of the 7th month, he sent the people away to their homes, glad and merry in heart for the goodness that the Father had shown to David, to Solomon, and to Israel his people. Thus Solomon finished the Father's house and the king's house, all that he had planned to do in the Father's house and his own house, he accomplished successfully. This is my favourite bit, coming to my favourite And the Father appeared to Solomon by night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven so no rain falls, or if I command locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among the people. 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves. Keyword, humble themselves. This is what it's all about. Kings, Chronicles, the prophets, humble themselves. Pray, seek, crave, require of necessity my face, and turn from their wicked ways. Then I will hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to prayer offered in this place. Let me quickly skip to Jeremiah 29:14. Jeremiah 29. Let me start at 12. Then you will call upon me and I will come and then you will call upon me and you will come and pray to me, and I will hear and heed you. Then you will seek me, inquire for and require me as a vital necessity, and find me. When you search for me with all your heart, I will be found by you, says the Father, and I will release you from captivity and gather you from all the nations and all the places to which I have driven you, says the Father, and I will bring you back to the place from which I caused you to be carried away captive. Second Chronicles 7:16, for I have chosen and sanctified, set apart for holy use this house, that my name may be here forever, and my eyes and my heart will be here perpetually. As for you, Solomon, if you will walk before me as your father David walked. Fathers and sons, fathers and sons, fathers and sons. And do all I have commanded you, and observe my statutes and my ordinances, that I will establish the throne of your kingdom as I covenanted with David your father, saying, there shall not fail a man to be ruler in Israel. But if you people turn away and forsake my statutes, but if you people turn away and forsake my statutes and my commandments, which I set before you, and go and serve other gods and worship them, then I will pluck Israel up by the roots out of my land which I have given them, and this house which I have hallowed for my name will I cast out of my sight. And I will make it to be a proverb and a byword among all the nations. And this house which was so high shall be an astonishment to everyone passing it. And they will say, why has the Father done this to this land and to this house? Then men will say, because they forsook the Father, the Elohim of their fathers, who brought them out of Egypt. And they laid hold of other gods and worshipped and served them. Therefore he has brought all this evil upon them. You see, they know. Other nations know. I'm not talking about people, but other countries, governments, they know. They have their archives. They have their scrolls. And of course, Israel, true Israel, has been mentioned in it. It goes back to the Confederacy, Psalms 83. Everyone round about, they knew. Coming out of Egypt, they knew. Deuteronomy, they knew. Little verses here and there, you see how they knew. They knew. They hissed. They knew. Why did their God do this to them? Little things like that I take note of. They knew. These countries, they know. It's in their archives. It's in their scrolls. They had documented things as well. They know. Okay. So you go through sons and sons and sons. He didn't walk in his way. In the 8th year of King Jeroboam, Abijah began to reign over Judah. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother was Micaiah, daughter of Uriel of Gibeon. And there was war between Abijah and Jeroboam of Israel. You see, people fighting for the throne. This mother wants her son on there. This one dies early. His brother takes his place. He goes running after other gods and such and such. It's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Jehoshaphat, you know. Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, returned safely in his house in Jerusalem. Jehoshaphat had great riches and honor, but he was allied in marriage with Ahab. Jehovah his son reigned in Asa's stead and strengthened himself against Israel. And he placed forces and fortified cities. So you've got Judah and Israel warring between each other, such and such, and on and on and on. And one another thing is, like, when they die, if they're proved to be unrighteous, and certain things have happened to the family, to the house of Israel, they bury him as a king, but they don't bury him in the tomb of his fathers. When you're one of the greats, you get to go in the tomb of your fathers, in the greats. So we get to 30, Hezekiah. Hezekiah sent all Israel, sent to all Israel as well as Judah, and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh to come to the Lord's house at Jerusalem to keep the Passover. To the Father, the God of Israel. Here we go. For the king and his princes and all the assembly in Jerusalem took counsel to keep the Passover in the 2nd month, for they could not keep it at the set time, because not enough priests had sanctified themselves. Neither had the people assembled in Jerusalem. The new time pleased the king and all the assembly. So it's giving people time to cleanse yourselves, get ready. We're going to do this. So they decreed to make a proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba to Dan, that the people should come to keep the Passover to the Father, Elohim of Israel, at Jerusalem, for they had not kept it collectively as prescribed for a long time. Because, like I said, the sons of the kings, like, they're just running after their own interests, and they're all pumped up on power. You know, these are spoilt children. They're spoilt royal children, rich kids, you know. They're all in it for themselves, and, you know. They don't pay attention to the calamities, like, And David, with all his trials and tribulations, he just sat his son Solomon down, and he's like, look, So they decreed to make a proclamation throughout all Israel from Beersheba to Dan that the people should come to keep the Passover for the Father of Israel at Jerusalem, for they had not kept it collectively for a prescribed time. So the posts went with the letters from the king and the princes throughout all Israel and Judah, and the king commanded, saying, O Israel, O Israelites, return to the Father, our Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he may return to those left of you who escaped out of the hands of the king of Assyria. Do not be like your fathers and brethren, who were unfaithful to the Father, the Elohim of their fathers, so that he gave them up to desolation, to be an astonishment, as you see. Now be not stiff-necked as your fathers were, but yield yourselves to Yah, and come to his sanctuary, which he has sanctified forever, and serve the Father, your Elohim, that his fierce anger may turn away from you. For if you return to your father, your brethren and your children shall find compassion with their captors, and return to this land. For the Lord, your Elohim, is gracious and merciful, and he will turn away his face from you if you return to him. So the posts passed from city to city, through the country of Ephraim and Manasseh, even to Zebulun. But the people laughed. The people laughed them to scorn and mocked them. Israelites, you know this. Believers, you know this. How many times have we been there? Especially Elohim, especially Kodashim, us set apart ones, us on the mission of waking up Jake. How many times have we been mocked and laughed to scorn? Yet a few of Asher, Manasseh, and Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. And the hand of God came upon Judah to give them one heart to do the commandment of the king of the princes and to the word of the Father. And many people came to Jerusalem to keep the feast of unleavened bread in the 2nd month, a very great assembly. They rose up and took away the altars to idols that were in Jerusalem, and all the altars and utensils for incense to the gods they took away and threw them in the Kidron Valley, the dumping place for the ashes of such abominations. Then they killed the Passover lamb on the 14th day of the 2nd month, and the priests and the Levites were ashamed and sanctified themselves and brought burnt offerings to the Father's house. They stood in their accustomed places as directed in the law of Moses, the man of God. The priests threw against the wall of the altar the blood they received from the hand of the Levites. For many were in assembly who had not sanctified themselves, became clean and free of all sin. So the Levites had to kill the Passover lambs for all who were not clean, in order to make them holy to the Father. For a multitude of the people, for many, Ephraim, Manasseh, Issachar, and Zebulun had not cleansed themselves, yet they ate the Passover otherwise than Moses directed. For Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, May the good God pardon everyone who sets his heart to seek and to yearn for Yah, for the Father, the Elohim of his fathers, even though not complying with the purification regulations of the sanctuary. And the Father hearkened to Hezekiah and healed the people. And the Israelites who were in Jerusalem kept the feast of unleavened bread for 7 days with great joy. The Levites and the priests praised the Father day by day, singing with instruments of such volume to the Father. Hezekiah spoke encouragingly to all the Levites who had good understanding in the Father's work, so the people ate the 7-day appointed feast, offering peace offerings, making confessions, and giving thanks to the Father, the Elohim of their fathers. And the whole assembly took counsel to prolong the feast another 7 days, and they kept it another 7 days with joy. For Hezekiah, king of Judah, gave to the assembly 1,000 young bulls, 7,000 sheep, and the princes gave 1,000 young bulls and 10,000 sheep. And a great number of priests sanctified themselves for service. All the assembly of Judah with the priests and the Levites, and all the assembly with the sojourners, came from the land of Israel to dwell in Judah, rejoiced. So there was great joy in Jerusalem, for since the time of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, there was nothing like this in Jerusalem until Josiah. Then the priests and Levites arose and blessed the people, and their service was heard. So the priests and Levites arose and blessed the people, and their voices was heard, and their prayer came up to God's holy habitation in heaven. Manasseh. 2 Chronicles 33. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. But he did evil in the Lord's sight, like the abominations of the heathen whom the Lord drove out before the Israelites. Let's pause there, and we shall get back for part 2.